Captain Sarah Chen never expected her worst day to begin with coffee spilling on her uniform. The bridge of the U.S. Retribution hummed with typical morning efficiency, crew members checking systems, monitoring deep space communications. Just another routine patrol along the Terran colonial defense perimeter. How wonderfully wrong she was. Captain, Lieutenant Rodriguez practically shouted from the sensor station. Massive contact dropping out of hyperspace, bearing 27 Mark V. Sarah set down her coffee mug, the brown stain on her white sleeve suddenly the least of her concerns. Size estimate, Rodriguez? The young officer's voice cracked slightly. 15 kilometers long, ma'am. Configuration unknown. It's definitely not human design. 15 kilometers. Sarah felt her stomach drop. The largest human dreadnought measured barely 3 kilometers. Whatever just arrived could probably use their ship as a toothpick. Red alert. All hands to battle stations. Her voice carried across the ship's communication system, crisp and authoritative despite the ice forming in her veins. Helm, evasive pattern Delta 7. Keep us moving. The massive view screen flickered to life, revealing something that belonged in nightmares rather than reality. The alien vessel resembled a predator's skull stretched into impossible dimensions, bone-white hull gleaming with what looked like organic growths. Weapon ports dotted its surface like empty eye sockets, each one larger than their entire ship. Captain. Communications Officer Williams spoke up, his usually steady hands trembling over his console. We're being hailed. On screen, the image that appeared made several crew members gasp audibly. The being addressing them stood nearly 3 meters tall, covered in what appeared to be living shadow that rippled and moved independently of any light source. 6 arms extended from its torso, each ending in clawed hands that could probably crush a human skull effortlessly. Most disturbing of all were its eyes, deep violet orbs that seemed to contain swirling galaxies, ancient beyond measure. When it spoke, the voice resonated through the bridge like distant thunder, translated by their computers into perfectly accented English. I am Vex Thaner of the Night Stalker Legion. We are the Vorthak, eldest hunters of this galaxy. You're the species called human, are you not? Sarah stepped forward, forcing her voice to remain steady. I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Retribution. What do you want with us? A sound emerged from the creature that their computers interpreted as laughter, though it sounded more like grinding metal. Want? Child of Terra. We have been hunting and devouring civilizations since before your star was born. We have consumed the dreams of the ethereal collective, devoured the war songs of the Krillian Empire, and turned 1,000 worlds into feeding grounds. Great. Just fantastic. Sarah's day kept improving. However, Vex Thaner continued, those galaxy-filled eyes seeming to peer directly into her soul. We find ourselves in a most unusual predicament. For the first time in our endless existence, we require assistance. The bridge fell silent, except for the ambient hum of life support systems. Sarah blinked twice, certain she'd misheard. You need our help? Indeed. How deliciously ironic. Is it not? The apex predators of this galaxy, reduced to bargaining with what we once considered mere prey animals. Lieutenant Commander Jackson, her second-in-command, leaned closer to whisper, Captain, this has to be a trap. No way something that powerful needs help from us. Sarah nodded, almost imperceptibly, but kept her attention focused on the alien. What kind of assistance could we possibly provide that you cannot accomplish yourselves? Vex Thaner's form seemed to ripple with what might have been amusement. Your species possesses something we have never encountered in our eons of existence. Something that defies our understanding of natural selection and survival of the fittest. Which is stupidity so profound it borders on genius. Recklessness so complete it becomes tactical brilliance. The ability to succeed where logic dictates absolute failure should be the only possible outcome. Sarah felt her eye twitch. Was this ancient cosmic horror actually insulting humanity while asking for their help? The audacity was almost impressive. You're basically calling us idiots, she said flatly. Not idiots, Captain Chen. Impossibilities. We have observed your species' expansion across this sector with growing fascination. You attack enemies 10 times your strength and somehow emerge victorious. You charge headfirst into situations that should result in extinction, yet you thrive. You display tactical thinking so chaotic, it transcends conventional warfare entirely. Rodriguez looked up from his sensor station, confusion written across his face. Captain, I'm reading multiple Vorthak vessels throughout the system. Hundreds of them, all maintaining distance from this flagship. Interesting. If the Vorthak were truly as powerful as they claimed, why maintain such formations unless they were protecting something? Or perhaps hiding from something even worse? Our enemy, Vexthaner continued, has proven immune to conventional tactics. They adapt to every strategy we employ, counter every advantage we possess. They are logical, efficient, predictable. Everything we are, they are better. Everything we do, they do more effectively. And you think our supposed stupidity might actually work against them? Sarah asked, beginning to understand despite herself. We have studied your military history extensively. The Battle of Thermopylae, where 300 soldiers held back hundreds of thousands. The charge of the Light Brigade, a tactical disaster that somehow achieved strategic victory. The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, where civilians with improvised weapons forced an empire to commit significant resources to suppress them. Jackson whispered again, Captain, he's describing our greatest military disasters as successes. No, Sarah murmured back. He's describing our greatest acts of desperate courage as tactical innovations. Vexthaner's 6 arms spread wide in what might have been a gesture of respect or threat. Precisely, Captain Chun. Your species excels at doing the impossible precisely because you lack the intelligence to realize it cannot be done. Gee, thanks for the pep talk, Sarah replied dryly. So what exactly are you proposing? An alliance. Temporary, of course. We provide you with technology, resources, and intelligence about our mutual enemy. In exchange, you provide us with your unique brand of tactical insanity. Sarah glanced around her bridge, noting the mix of terror, excitement, and disbelief on her crew's faces. This was quite possibly the worst idea in human history, which, considering humanity's track record, was really saying something. Who is this enemy that has the galaxy's oldest predators running scared? For the first time, Vexthaner's confidence seemed to waver slightly. They call themselves the Harmonizers. They seek to bring order to chaos, perfection to flawed existence. They convert every species they encounter into extensions of their collective will. Perfect unity, perfect efficiency, perfect predictability. Sounds like our kind of challenge, Sarah said with a grin that probably looked slightly unhinged. What did you have in mind? We have tracked them to the Xerion Nebula, where they are constructing something we cannot fully comprehend. Our scouts report a structure spanning several star systems, drawing energy from the nebula itself. If completed, it will allow them to harmonize entire galactic sectors simultaneously. The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. Instant assimilation of billions of beings across hundreds of worlds. How long until completion? Approximately 72 of your standard hours. 3 days to prevent galactic-scale genocide. Sarah almost laughed at the absurdity of it all. Almost. All right, Vexthaner, you got yourself a deal. But I have conditions. The ancient predator tilted its massive head. Curious. Name them. First, no eating any humans during this partnership. I don't care how tempting we look. Agreed, though you do smell remarkably appetizing. Second, full tactical cooperation. Your ships follow our battle plans, no matter how insane they seem. This may prove challenging, but acceptable. Third, when this is over, you leave human space alone. Permanently. Vexthaner was quiet for several moments, those galactic eyes swirling with deeper colors. You drive a hard bargain for such a small species. Very well. These terms are acceptable. Sarah felt the weight of the moment settling on her shoulders. She was about to ally with creatures that had spent millions of years devouring civilizations against an enemy that wanted to turn the entire galaxy into a perfectly ordered hive mind. Just another day in the life of humanity, really. Rodriguez, send a priority message to Fleet Command. Tell them we're about to save the galaxy using the power of human stupidity. They'll know what that means. Aye, Captain, Rodriguez replied, though his expression suggested he had no idea what it meant. Williams, open a channel to the Vorthak fleet. Time to see if our new friends are ready for a crash course in human military tactics. As the communication links established themselves, Sarah couldn't help but smile. The Harmonizers wanted perfect order and predictability. They were about to meet the most chaotically unpredictable species in the galaxy. And honestly, Sarah almost felt sorry for them. Almost. The real fun was about to begin. 48 hours later, Captain Sarah Chen stood in the war room aboard Vextainer's flagship, surrounded by the most terrifying collection of predators the galaxy had ever produced. The chamber itself defied human architectural understanding, with walls that seemed to breathe and floors that rippled like liquid shadow beneath her boots. "Your plan is absolutely insane," growled Commander Thekmore, a Vorthak whose scarred carapace told stories of 1,000 conquered worlds. Suicide dressed up a strategy. Sarah grinned, spreading holographic star charts across the table with theatrical flair. "Now you're getting it. See, that's exactly why it's going to work." The assembled Vorthak commanders exchanged what she learned were expressions of deep concern. These beings had spent eons perfecting the art of warfare through overwhelming force and tactical superiority. What Sarah proposed violated every principle of military logic they understood. "Let me walk you through this again," Sarah continued, manipulating the hologram to show the Xerion Nebula. The Harmonizers have built their megastructure in the Nebula's center, using the charged particles for power. They positioned defense platforms at every logical approach vector, created overlapping fields of fire, and established patrol routes that cover all strategic entry points. Precisely why direct assault is impossible, Vextainer rumbled from his position at the head of the table. Their defensive matrix is flawless. For a logical attack, sure, but we're not going to attack their defenses. Sarah's smile widened. We're going to ignore them completely. The silence that followed was so complete that Sarah could hear the ship's organic systems pulsing around them. Ignore them? Thekmore's voice rose several octaves. How does one ignore planetary-scale weapon platforms? Easy. We're going to crash the party from below. Sarah manipulated the display, highlighting the nebula's lower region, where gravitational anomalies created a maze of spatial distortions. See these gravity wells? They're considered completely impassable by any sane military force. Ships that enter that region get torn apart by tidal forces. Because they do get torn apart by tidal forces, another Vorthak commander interjected. The mathematics are quite clear on this point. Right, which is why the Harmonizers haven't bothered defending that approach. They know it's impossible. Sarah paused for dramatic effect. But impossible is humanity's specialty. She brought up schematics of modified human ships, designs that made the Vorthak commanders recoil in horror. We strip our vessels down to bare essentials. Remove armor, weapons, life support redundancies. Everything except engines, shields, and just enough structure to hold together. You're describing flying coffins, Vextainer observed. Exactly. Flying coffins that are small enough and maneuverable enough to thread the needle through those gravity wells. The Harmonizers will never see us coming, because we'll be approaching from a direction that should be absolutely lethal. Lieutenant Commander Jackson, who'd been suspiciously quiet during the briefing, finally spoke up. "Captain, you do realize this plan has about a 0.01% chance of success?" "Jackson, my friend, you're being optimistic. I'd put our odds closer to 0.005%. Sarah's grin became positively manic, which makes it absolutely perfect. The next 12 hours passed in a blur of impossible preparations. Human engineering crews worked alongside Vorthak technicians, stripping down ships and installing alien technology that human science claimed couldn't possibly function. Meanwhile, the Harmonizers continued their methodical construction, completely unaware that the galaxy's most illogical species was about to attempt something so stupid it circled back to genius. "Captain," Rodriguez called from the communication station, "we're receiving updates from the scout probes. The Harmonizers have activated preliminary power systems. They're ahead of schedule." Sarah felt her stomach tighten. Instead of 72 hours, They now had maybe 18 before the megastructure went online. How many ships do we have ready? 47 human vessels, all modified according to your specifications. The Vorthak fleet will provide distraction attacks on the outer perimeter. It'll have to be enough. Sarah turned to address the mixed human and Vorthak crew manning the bridge. Ladies, gentlemen, and terrifying cosmic predators, today we're going to accomplish something that will either save the galaxy or provide historians with the most spectacular example of military stupidity ever recorded. Probably both, Jackson muttered. The journey to the Xerion Nebula took 6 hours at maximum burn. Ships pushed beyond safe operational limits because safe had never been part of the plan anyway. As they approached the nebula's edge, Sarah watched the tactical display with growing excitement and terror. Harmonizer defense grid is active, Williams reported. Massive energy signatures throughout the nebula. They've got enough firepower to sterilize entire star systems. Perfect. Vexthaner, begin your attack runs on the outer platforms. Make lots of noise, draw their attention. Through the view screen, Sarah watched the Vorthak fleet emerge from hyperspace in perfect formation, their massive vessels unleashing devastating barges against the Harmonizer positions. The enemy response was immediate and overwhelming, exactly as planned. All human vessels. This is Retribution Actual. Sarah broadcast on the fleet frequency. Remember, we're not trying to survive this approach. We're trying to get close enough to matter before we die horribly. Anyone who makes it through gravity wells gets to attempt something even more impossible. Cheerful as always, Captain, came the reply from Commander Torres aboard the destroyer Defiance. Sarah watched her tactical display as 47 human ships dove toward the nebula's lower region, where physics itself seemed determined to kill them. The first casualties came within minutes. The frigate Determination simply vanished as tidal forces exceeded her structural limits. The corvette Persistence lasted another 30 seconds before a fusion reactor overloaded. We're losing ships faster than projected, Jackson reported, his voice tight with stress. Actually, we're losing ships exactly as projected, Sarah corrected. The question is whether enough survive to make this worth it. Through the chaos, Sarah could hear her fellow captains maintaining running commentary on the tactical frequency. Captain Morrison aboard the cruiser Audacity described the ship's hull plating peeling away like banana skin. Commander Yates reported that the destroyer Tenacity had lost main power, but was continuing on emergency systems and pure momentum. Retribution, this is reckless, came Captain Park's voice, slightly distorted by gravitational interference. I've lost shields, weapons, and half my crew, but I can see the target structure. It's beautiful in a completely horrifying way. Sarah checked her own ship status. They'd lost 3 decks to structural failure. The artificial gravity was cycling randomly, and her coffee maker had apparently achieved sentience and was demanding workers' compensation. Still, they were alive and moving toward the target. All remaining vessels, prepare for final approach. Once we clear the gravity wells, we'll have approximately 90 seconds before the Harmonizers realize what we've done and redirect their defenses. 23 human ships emerged from the gravitational maze, their hulls scarred and systems failing, but intact enough to complete their mission. Ahead of them stretched the Harmonizer megastructure, a construction of impossible beauty and terrible purpose that spanned 3 star systems. My God, Williams whispered. It's gorgeous. The structure resembled a vast neural network made of crystalline energy, with nodes the size of moons connected by streams of pure information. At its heart sat what could only be the central processing core, a sphere of writhing light that hurt to look at directly. Target confirmed, Sarah announced. All ships, execute final attack pattern. Remember, we're not trying to destroy this thing. We're trying to give it indigestion. The plan's final phase was perhaps the most insane part of all. Instead of attacking the megastructure with conventional weapons, the human ships began broadcasting on every frequency they could access. Not weapons fire or electromagnetic pulses, but something far more dangerous to a perfectly ordered system. Pure, unfiltered human communication. Every ship transmitted everything they had. Personal logs, entertainment broadcasts, military communications, shopping lists, love letters, angry complaints about cafeteria food, philosophical debates about the proper pronunciation of GIF, and detailed discussions of whether hot dogs qualified as sandwiches. The effect on the Harmonizer system was immediate and catastrophic. "Captain," Rodriguez shouted over growing chaos, "the megastructure's resonance patterns are destabilizing. They're trying to process all our transmissions simultaneously." The beautiful crystalline network began flickering as it attempted to harmonize the most chaotic, contradictory, and utterly illogical collection of information in galactic history. Human culture, in all its magnificent absurdity, was proving too much for a system designed to create perfect order. "It's working." Jackson laughed with slightly hysterical relief. "They can't handle us." Through the view screen, Sarah watched as sections of the megastructure began shutting down in sequence, overwhelmed by trying to make sense of humanity's complete inability to make sense. The processing core pulsed frantically, its perfect algorithms grinding to a halt as they encountered paradoxes like military intelligence, jumbo shrimp, and the concept of pretty ugly. "All human vessels, begin emergency withdrawal," Sarah commanded. "I think we've given them enough of a headache." As the surviving ships limp away from the collapsing megastructure, Sarah opened a channel to Vexstainer's flagship. "How's the view from up there, Ancient One?" "Remarkable," came the reply, though Vexstainer's voice carried notes of something like awe. "In all our eons of existence, we have never witnessed tactical stupidity elevated to such artistic heights." "I'll take that as a compliment. It was intended as one. The Harmonizers are withdrawing from this sector entirely. Our intelligence suggests they are reconsidering their entire approach to galactic conquest." Sarah leaned back in her command chair, finally allowing herself to relax. Around her, the bridge crew celebrated with the restrained professionalism of people who had just accomplished the impossible through the power of being too dumb to realize it couldn't be done. "Captain," Williams called from communications, "we're receiving a message from the Harmonizer Collective." Put on screen, the image that appeared showed a being of pure geometric perfection, all angles and mathematical precision. When it spoke, its voice carried the mechanical cadence of absolute logic. "Humans of Terra, we have analyzed your species extensively following this encounter. We have reached a conclusion." "Oh, this should be good," Sarah muttered. "You are too chaotic to harmonize efficiently. The energy required to impose order on your civilization would exceed the benefits of integration. We hereby declare your species exempt from harmonization protocols." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. "Did we just get rejected by the galactic conquerors for being too weird?" Jackson asked. "I believe we did," Sarah replied. "And honestly, I couldn't be prouder." As the human fleet regrouped with their Vorthak allies, Sarah reflected on what they'd accomplished. They hadn't just saved the galaxy through superior firepower or brilliant tactics. They'd saved it by being so fundamentally, gloriously human that even cosmic horror couldn't figure out how to deal with them. Sometimes being the galaxy's favorite disaster species had its advantages. The Vorthak, true to their word, departed human space with promises never to return as enemies. The Harmonizers retreated to distant galaxies where the locals presumably made more sense. And humanity continued its expansion across the stars, leaving a trail of confused aliens and impossible victories in their wake. Just another day in the neighborhood, really. But somewhere in the depths of space, ancient predators told stories of the day they learned that the universe's greatest weapon wasn't claws, or fangs, or perfect logic. It was humanity's magnificent refusal to be anything other than completely, brilliantly, impossibly human.